Good morning, Year 7. Today we're going to look at some of that data that you put in last lesson. So the first thing I want you to do though is to do the quick quiz. So this is a way of checking that you have not forgotten some of the other things that we've done this year. Write down the answers and then restart the PowerPoint for me. Okay, so the answers you should have got: a code for characteristic is a gene, 3 states of matter are solid, liquid and gas, and the pH of a strong alkali is 13 or 14. Forces are measured in newtons. So put the title please, types of variation, and by the end of the lesson I want us to be able to tell the difference between continuous and discontinuous variation and use graphs to show that, and I want you to be able to plot a graph as well. Alright, so first of all let's look at these different types of variation. What's the difference between the list on the left and the list on the right? Stop the PowerPoint and have a think. And then let's look at this definition. So the word discontinuous is a feature where there are only a few options and we either have one or the other. Continuous means that you can have any value. So there could be a number of different values on it and it's almost in a range. So let's look back at those two lists. Shoe size, eye colour and gender or sex is called a discontinuous variable because you're either falling into one or another category. Height, running speed and length of arm are continuous variables because you could be one of anything. Generally speaking, discontinuous variables are more likely to be controlled by genes, and continuous variables are more likely to be the environment and genes. So let's look at our data from last lesson. One of the things I asked you to do was to tell me whether you could roll your tongue or not. So have a think, is that data continuous or discontinuous, and what's the conclusion from the data? Pause the video and have a write down of what you think's the answer. Okay, hopefully you've done that. The conclusion would be that most people can roll their tongue. In fact, 90% can, or even over 90% can. And the data is discontinuous. Try this one. Again, pause the video. What is the conclusion you can draw from the data? And is the data continuous or discontinuous? Okay, so the conclusion we could draw is that nobody in the class has grey eyes, and that 50% of the class, half the class, has actually got blue eyes. The data is still discontinuous. Straight or curved thumbs. Right, so again, what's the conclusion? And is the data continuous or discontinuous? So this would be a discontinuous data, and it would, because you're either one thing or another, although some people weren't sure about how to measure it. And we could say that there are 50-50. Your average, half the class have straight thumbs and half the class have curved thumbs. Width of arm span. Well, these are the results that I had from width of arm spans. I'm sorry I didn't get everybody's on there. And what I've done is I've put that into a frequency table because we are looking at the numbers in each category. So you can see 142 falls into that category, and so does 143, so does 142 there, and then 147 goes into that category, 159 goes into that category, and so on. And so these are the frequencies of each of those heights. So what is the conclusion from the data? Again, pause the video and see if you can write it. So this data is going to be continuous. Okay, and the conclusion we could make is that most of the class are over 141 centimetres, and there's an even spread over that number. So there's very few that are less than 140 centimetres. So another one that we looked at was freckles. What's the conclusion? Pause the video and then tell me whether you think the data is continuous or discontinuous. Hope you got the idea that the data is still discontinuous because you either have freckles or don't have freckles. But we can see that actually it probably is a little bit more affected by the environment because we have a few that come out when it's sunny. So it might be a bit about what we're asking there, and whether we have a number of freckles, we might have ended up with some continuous data. And sometimes it isn't as easy to say whether something is continuous or discontinuous. It does depend a little bit about how we ask the question. Okay, so here is a table of heights. What I want you to do now is I want you to do a graph for me. You can just do lined paper if you haven't got any graph paper or square paper. And you're going to do a suitable graph, and then you're going to tell me whether you think that data is discontinuous or continuous. If you're struggling, this graph will help you, so you can see the heights go along the bottom and the frequencies go along the side.